Good morning. Uh, Thank you all for coming to participate in this event. We will be starting in the next 5 minutes, so please stay online. We will be starting in the next 5 minutes. Please stay online. Thank you very much. Good morning, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ronald Kayanja, the Director of the United Nations Information Center for Nigeria. I welcome you to this high-level discussion to mark the International Day of Forests, organized by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, together with the Department of Forestry and the Federal Ministry of Environment. As many of you know, the theme of the International Day of Forests for 2021 is Forest Restoration, a Path to Recovery and Well-Being. Our discussion today will focus on how Nigeria is faring in conserving and restoring forest resources for the well-being of the people of Nigeria. And we will also explore the roles of government at all levels, the federal, state, and even local government, the roles of development partners and civil society. And indeed, there's a role for all of us. The program for today is a panel. We will have a panel of very eminent persons to discuss these issues. But I would like, first of all, to recognize the presence of the Honorable Minister, the Federal Minister of Environment, Honorable Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar. Thank you, sir, for coming to this event. You are very much welcome. I would also like to recognize the representative of FAO in Nigeria and ECOWAS, Mr. Fred Kafero. Sir, you are very much welcome. Let me also recognize those who will join us on the panel, Mr. Razak Kolaole Adekola, the Acting Director, Forestry Department, Ministry of Environment. We have all the way from Cross River, Chief Tony Undiandeye. He is the chairman of the State Forestry Commission Board of Cross River. In fact, I remember some years back, I went to Cross River and the governor was talking about planting 1 million trees. And that sounded very, very good. And we'll hear from Chief Tony if that is still the plan. We will be joined by Professor Opeyemi Ajewole from the University of Ibadan. He's done a lot of research on these issues. And we are joined already by Madam Tracy Obona from the Women Environmental Program. As we said, we want that balance between the government, the civil society, and the development partners. So that's why we have, as one of the panel, on the panel, a representative from the civil society. Without wasting any more time, I would like now to call upon the FAO representative, also representative in Nigeria and ECOWAS, Mr. Fred Kafero, who will explain to us the importance of this day and all the issues related to forests and forest conservation. The FAO in the United Nations is the lead agency on these matters. Over to you, Mr. Fred Kafero.
Thank you so much. And let me also add to your voice in welcoming the Honorable Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar, Federal Minister of Environment in this country. You are very, very much welcome, Honorable Minister. I also welcome the distinguished panelists as you have introduced them, and certainly you as the moderator, the director of UN Information Center. And I recognize all the participants to the webinar. I know that we have quite a number of them connected virtually to be with us on this day. We are here because in 2012, the United Nations General Assembly proclaimed that 21st of March of every year will mark the International Day of Forests. And this was in recognition that sustainable management of forests is critical to combating climate change, to sustaining ecosystem services, to contributing to prosperity and to the well-being of the current and future generations. That's why it is a very important day for all of us. So resulting from that, member states committed to spearhead efforts that celebrate and raise awareness of the importance of all types of forests and trees to humanity. All this with the support of the UN Forum of Forests and also the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, FAO. Now, such activities that member states committed to do include tree planting campaigns, symposiums and webinars of this nature, like the one we are having today, art exhibitions or photo exhibitions and competitions, debates among young people. Now, the aim is to engage a range of stakeholders, young and old, women and men, professionals and grassroots communities, and all stakeholders. As the moderator has indicated, the theme for this year is forest restoration, a path to recovery and well-being. It aligns very well with the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration, which starts this year actually. The decade is 2021 to 2030. The aim of the UN Decade on Ecosystem Restoration is to prevent, is to halt, to reverse the degradation of ecosystem worldwide, because it's a big problem worldwide. It's not only for Nigeria. Allow me, moderator, to highlight the following key messages that we really would love to come out on this day of the International Day of Forests. One is that healthy forests mean healthy people. For we know that forests provide health benefits for everyone, such as fresh air, nutritious foods, clean water, and space for recreation. In developed countries, up to 25% of all medicinal drugs are plant-based, while in developing countries, the contribution is as high as 80% of people using medicinal drugs from forests. The second message is that forests provide healthy diets. And for us as FAO, this is very important to know. Indigenous communities and rural folks typically consume more than 100 types of wild food, many harvested in forests. This gives a very high dietary diversity, which is important for healthy living. Sustainable forestry creates millions of jobs. Forests provide more than 86 million green jobs and support the livelihoods of many more people. Wood and non-wood products from well-managed forests support diverse industries and create employment. The fourth message is that restoring forests will improve our environment. This seems to be common knowledge, but it's not necessarily common. The world is losing 10 million hectares of forests each year, with resulting land degradation. And the restoration and sustainable management of forests, therefore, will address climate change and biodiversity crisis that we are currently experiencing. But it is also possible to restore degraded lands at huge scale. The Great Green Wall for the Sahara and the Sahel Initiative, which was launched in 2007 by the African Union, is the most ambitious response in this respect. Within this framework, FAO, in partnership with the Great Green Wall Agency in this country, have responded through a joint initiative that we call the Action Against Desertification. And this is in states of Bauchi, Jigawa, and Sokoto. This initiative has enhanced the capacity of communities in selected local government areas to rehabilitate degraded lands which have been brought under green cover using multi-purpose trees that local people use, particularly for timber or for fruits or for fodder or firewood and for income generation. FAO, as you know, is a United Nations agency with member states. So our work priorities, especially in the area of forestry in Africa, are determined by the Africa Forestry and Wildlife Commission, which is a governing body of FAO in the Africa region. And this body sits every 2 years to review and look at what priorities FAO should support member countries on with regard to forestry and wildlife. Over the years, we in FAO have been working with the federal and state governments, particularly in strengthening institutional capacities in various aspects, looking at forest monitoring and measurement and reporting and verification. And modern forest inventory equipment have been procured, and that has also been followed with construction support for and furnishing of a remote sensing GIS lab. Now we are involved in a special project that aims to promote integrated landscape management and sustainable food systems in the Niger Delta region. This is focusing on cocoa and oil palm producing landscapes in Cross River and Ondo states. And it's aimed at contributing to biodiversity conservation and also the restoration of degraded land and forests and application of sustainable practices for agriculture. I'm happy that we have a panelist from the Cross River who will be sharing with us more on this one. But I want to conclude by reiterating the United Nations and definitely FAO's continued commitment and the support to the Federal Republic of Nigeria for the sustainable management of forest resources. This is why we are here, to support your efforts, because doing so is vital for ensuring sustainable agriculture production, for economic prosperity that creates jobs and employment, and improves lives, and for mitigation of the negative effects of climate change. There is an opportunity for all of us to rebuild forest landscapes that are equitable and productive, and that avert the risks of ecosystems and to people because of forest destruction. If done in the right way, there is no doubt that forest restoration and sustainable management of forests are a key nature-based solutions for building back better and for achieving the future we all want without leaving anyone behind. I thank you all, and I look forward to rich and fruitful discussions that we are going to go through in the next 1 hour or so. Thank you so much, moderator.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fred Kafero, representative of the FAO. You've talked about many key messages, which I think we will take time to discuss during this event. But I would like now to request the Honorable Minister. Honorable Minister, Federal Minister for Environment, Dr. Mohamed Mahmoud Abubakar, I would like to first say that in the UN, we are recognizing your efforts. We are following you. We have special interest in you and your work because, as you know, the assignment of the United Nations now is to support the country to achieve Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals.
Right.
And your ministry is central to sustainability efforts. And allow me to thank you on behalf of the UN for your commitment. We see what you are doing. We see your enthusiasm and the steps you are taking. So thank you, sir, for all you are doing. Let me now request you to open for us this webinar and also your message. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much. Let me start by recognizing the FAO representative whom I have met before in my office, Mr. Fred Kafero, and also the UN resident coordinator, and recognize my Director General of the Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria and the Director of the Federal Forestry Department also, and distinguished participants. Good morning. Once again, thank you FAO for organizing this and inviting me. It gives me great pleasure to be here today to join all of us in celebrating the year 2021 International Day of Forest. As you may all be aware, the United Nations General Assembly in 2012 proclaimed March 21st of every year as International Day of Forest to celebrate and promote public awareness of the significance of all types of forests to the global socio-economic, environmental, and human well-being. It is also aimed to promote effort at both national and international levels to address deforestation and other challenges bedeviling sustainable management of forest. The theme of this year's celebration, Forest Restoration, a Path to Recovery and Well-Being, underscores the significant role forests can play in our post-COVID-2019 recovery effort, as well as in our overall well-being. This fact, as we all know, was also buttressed by nature as it reflected in the global forest endowment prior to man's indiscriminate exploitation. Approximately 30% of the Earth's land is covered by forest. This, like other ecosystems, are affected by climate change and influence their own climate and climate processes. Forests absorb carbon in wood, leaves, and soil and release it into the atmosphere during forest fires or when cleared to make way for other land uses. Globally, it is estimated that deforestation and forest degradation represent approximately 17% of total annual anthropogenic greenhouse gas emissions. Covering nearly a third of the planet's land surface, forests and woodlands are key pillars of human livelihoods and well-being. They have continued to contribute immensely to global economy, environmental amelioration, climate change, poverty reduction, food security, and a host of others. Its significance in addressing disease outbreaks such as COVID-19 pandemic cannot be overemphasized because forests, if well managed, has the capacity for mitigation, adaptation, and resilience while simultaneously supporting livelihoods. A degraded forest comes with adverse effects on man and wildlife, and this tends to underscore the intrinsic linkage between human health, animal health, and health of the ecosystems. Forests are key. Forests are a key factor in the development of all economic sectors, having been found indispensable in the economic buildup processes. Unfortunately, deforestation continues at an alarming rate, with about 13 million hectares being destroyed annually and accounting for 12 to 20% of the global greenhouse gas emission that contribute to climate change. Intergovernmental bodies and experts have variously warned about the consequences of deforestation, degradation of biodiversity and ecosystems on the planet, and their capability to undermine progress towards 80% of the SDG targets related to water, cities, health, climate, oceans, and land, and hunger. It might be dangerous to treat these warnings with levity as they call for galvanization of urgent and transformative action by government and by all stakeholders to reverse the trend. It is instructive that presently forest cover is about 6% in Nigeria of the total area, and yet we are grappling with the challenges of deforestation and forest degradation. Nonetheless, the unwavering commitment of the present administration to checkmate the situation by rapidly increasing forest cover and doubling efforts at strategic and improved conservation and management of the nation's natural resources for the attainment of the economic recovery and growth plan, as well as the sustainable development goals. It's optimistically expected to turn the situation around. I want to assure you of government's commitment to support all efforts to address deforestation, forest degradation, and desertification in the country, and that the government has continued to demonstrate such commitment with ongoing programs in some of the departments and agencies of the Federal Ministry of Environment. We are currently embarking on programs and projects that will lead to noticeable improvement across the various ecological zones, from mangrove, freshwater swamp in the south, to the drier savanna vegetation in the north, culminating in the restoration of some degraded forest, reduction in biodiversity loss, returning degraded crop and grazing land to productivity, thereby enhancing livelihoods and reducing a number of the resource use conflict plaguing parts of the country today. In the area of policy and legal framework, the new national forest policy that has just been approved, was based on the guiding principles of sustainable forest management, national development agenda, and sustainable development goals. Its implementation would enable strategic course of action that aligns with international best practices and global targets. The establishment of National Forestry Trust Fund to help in increasing focus on sustainable forest management through its ability to generate additional and complementary sources of funding to supplement government budgetary provision and directly assisting in redressing the challenges of the forest sector, which is being largely affected by non-availability of sustained funds for forest management, arising not only from competing demands for available domestic funds, but also non-prioritization of these funds to take care of adequate financing for the sector. The implementation of Mr. President pledge to plant 25 million trees, which has led to the raising and planting of indigenous and exotic species in degraded forest and other landscape across the country, is expected to translate to speedy transformation of this degraded forest and landscape, including drylands as well as mangroves and coastal areas, while contributing to healthy ecosystems for adaptation and resilience to climate and disease outbreaks such as the COVID pandemic. Ladies and gentlemen, let me congratulate every one of us for being part of this celebration as we all come together in our quest to restore and ensure sustainable management of the forest for a healthy planet and improved general well-being. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And we have taken note of those important steps the government is taking for forest regeneration. That target of 25 million trees is a very good and important target, even as we talk about the Great Green Wall and the challenges that this region is facing. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. And that national forestry policy is another very, very, I should say, fantastic tool that you talked about, which will guide the work of not only the government, but also the development partners, the civil society, and everybody in this sector. That is very critical and also part of Agenda 2030. Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. Now we will go straight into the panel discussion, and I'm glad to note that I had introduced Professor Opeyemi Ajeole of University of Ibadan in absentia, but I can see that now he has joined us, so I'd like to welcome him. So again, our panelists are Mr. Razak Kolawole Adekola, Acting Director, Forestry Department, Minister of Environment. We also have Chief Tone Undiandeye from the Cross River, all the way from Cross River. He's the chairman for the State Forestry Commission Board. We also have, as I said, Professor Opeyemi Ajeole from University of Ibadan. He will bring in that research and academia perspective, because this is critical in every policy implementation. And of course, we have a very important part also of our discussion. Tracy Obona, Women Environmental Program, the civil society perspective, if we are going to achieve the goal of ensuring the forest resources of Nigeria are not only protected, but regenerated. As you had the Honorable Minister and also the FAO rep told us, 10 million hectares of trees are destroyed every year around the world. That is really too much. So without much ado, I would like now to bring in Mr. Razak Kolawole Adekola to tell us about well, the Honorable Minister has talked a bit about what the government is doing. Maybe you'll go into a bit of details. You know, sometimes when I hear that Boko Haram is in Zambisa forest, and they have now abducted children, and in Zamfara they are in the forests, people start to think forests are our enemies, you know? They say, oh, the forests are hiding the bandits and so on, so why don't we destroy the forests? So we need to be careful what name the forests get as we fight bandits and so on. But of course, I know there are many plans that the government is. The other challenge I've seen, I checked, there's a global portal which shows how countries along the Sahel are doing on the Great Green Wall. Unfortunately, Nigeria is one of those that is not doing well at all. I saw, you know, you can see on the graphs, countries like Eritrea, Ethiopia, Sudan, and others along the Sahel, they are doing something. You can see the graph is up, but for Nigeria, it's not yet there. But I'm so glad to hear what the Honorable Minister is saying about this policy and so on. But I would like to hand it over to Mr. Razak to tell us more what the government is doing, what efforts are there to make sure Nigeria doesn't lag behind in the Great Green Wall, but also to conserve the forestry resources this country has. Over to you, Mr. Razak.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, Mr. Ronald Kayanja, for the good job. Like he has said, my name is Razak Olawole Adekola, the Acting Director of Forestry. But before I proceed, permit me to acknowledge and recognize the presence of the Honorable Minister of Environment, Dr. Mohammed Mahmoud Abubakar, the lover of the environment himself, for giving me this great opportunity to be part of this panel discussion. I also like to appreciate the FAO representative in Nigeria and also the UN resident doctor. I also like to recognize the presence of the DG Forestry Research Institute of Nigeria, Professor Adeshola Adepoju, and all other colleagues who are here present on this program today. Yes, I have been given an assignment. The assignment is straightforward, to talk about the status of Nigerian forest resources, and then look at the challenges, the efforts of the government and other stakeholders so far to restore and to conserve these all-important natural resources. You will agree with me that formal forestry development in Nigeria started in the 19th century. That was the build-up to the need for industrial development in the British colonial era. And the efforts have been continuing until the late 1992, when the World Bank came up with a report that 10 million hectares of the total area of the country is under forest reserves. And this has continued from that up till mid-95, when a study was carried out by FOMECU then. That study essentially was to review and update the earlier effort that was made in the 1976-78. As a matter of fact, that effort was the first attempt at using the application of remote sensing and GIS to actually assess the Nigerian forest status. So this effort was reviewed about 15, 18 years after. And then it also went further to look at the extent as at 1976-78, and then the changes that have taken place between that period and 1993-95. So it has been a continuous effort anyway, because we needed to ascertain actually the actual status of forest reserves, without which it would be difficult for us to make any meaningful decision. And so it's like I said, it's an ongoing effort up till 1998 when the report came out. But I want to tell you that as at that time, before then, we knew that 10 million hectares of Nigerian forest area, Nigerian land area was under forest reserves. But we also have trees outside those reserves. But the focus then was on the forest reserves. And so the subsequent studies were able to capture the trees outside the forest reserves. So the result of that, as at 1998, when it was released, indicated that 25.9% of the Nigerian land area was actually covered by forest. And after that period, in 1993 to 95, it has dropped to 16.9. So that's about 9% forest loss. So the problem started right from the mid-90s up to the present moment. So the concerns begin to grow because population keeps increasing, and because of that, all the attendant consequences are emanating. So you will agree with me that Nigerian forest cover occur in 5 major ecological zones of Nigeria. The mangrove, coastal vegetation, then the lowland forest, then we have the derived savanna, we have the Sudan savanna, then we have the Sahel savanna. Then we have, of course, some traces on the mountain plateau of the country. So like I said, it has been a continuous effort. Then Nigerian Red Plus came on board. The Nigerian Red Plus came on board as a readiness implementation of Nigeria's interest to participate in issues that are aimed at addressing climate change. So that program started in Cross River State as a demonstration effort. And Cross River State was chosen because the state remains the only place where you get relics of natural forests in Nigeria. And so that study took place there, and we are able to demonstrate how ready the country is in addressing climate change. So we have, as a result, we have the subnational frame that was developed for Cross River State. We also have the strategy. Of course, we have the preparatory grant for the National Forest Monitoring System. And thereafter, this project was scaled up. So we have what we call the National Forest Reference Emission Level. And of course, we also have the National Strategy, which is an offshoot, which is an update of what was done in Cross River State. So these are, like I said, the effort keeps growing. And as at that time, it was realized that between 2006 and 2016, Nigeria emitted 32 million tons of carbon dioxide equivalent between 2006 and 2016. So you can see the kind of deforestation that was taking place. And if I have to do the breakdown, Guinea savanna has the highest rate of deforestation in that study, followed by the lowland rainforest and montane. Lowland rainforest and montane were combined. So we have the highest rate of forest loss in the Guinea savanna, and this is understandable. It is because of the quest to meet local demands for fuel wood and for other energy uses. So this was the scenario. This was followed by lowland rainforest. 40 hectares per year was recorded, as against the Guinea savanna, which was 95,000 per year. And of course, that studies indicated that Nigerian forest loss was at the rate of 6.8%, and that was based on the national forest definition, because we need to make this clear. As per that study, it was based on the national forest definition for Nigeria. And the definition is so clear. It is based on a minimum of 0.5 area of land that is covered by at least 15% canopy or 15% trees with a minimum height of 3 meters. So any area of land that meets that minimum requirement is qualified to be called a forest. And that is why the result of that study came up with that figure, 6.8% deforestation per year. Then thereafter, we have another study, which was based on 12th class land use land cover mapping. That 12th class land use land cover mapping was done not based on forest definition. It was the conventional land use land mapping exercise. It has 12th class. I mean, it was a 12th class study, and we have about, I think, 5 or 6 forest classes. So all these classes put together indicated that between 2006 and 2016, the forest cover in Nigeria was 8.7 million hectares. That went by, and then Of course, the FRA, the FAO Global Forest Assessment report for 2020 indicated that Nigeria forest cover is below 8%. And all these studies, I showcase them so that we'll be able to understand that whatever the figures are, this is the same case, that rate of deforestation is falling. I mean, it's increasing. Forest cover is decreasing in Nigeria. The FAO Global FRA report generally indicates that there is increase in forest cover globally. But that's not to say country-wise, the story is the same. In Nigeria, it is still below 10% cover. And because government has a target, the target of 25% forest cover, and the effort have been ongoing. Now, let me talk about the challenges. Of course, we know the usual challenges. The NFIP, the National Forest Investment Program, developed for Nigeria, that was 2019, under the ECOWAS Convergence Plan, identified 20 main strategic issues that are influencing sustainable forest management in Nigeria. And these two main issues are categorized or grouped into 5 thematic areas. So I'm going to look at the challenges based on these 5 thematic areas. And number 1 is landscape management. This one covers the management of forest ecosystems and agroforestry landscapes within the context of deforestation and forest degradation. Of course, it also covered the certification, wildfires, forest valuation, threats to agroforestry parklands, wood fuel consumption, certification, principles, criteria, and indicators for sustainable forest management. And of course, it also covers watershed management. Then the second challenge is forest governance issue. This includes institutional issues such as the National Forest Policy. But the good news here is that the National Forest Policy has been reviewed. We have a revised version that has been approved by the Federal Executive Council, yes, and is now being put into use. And of course, the draft National Forest Bill. The bill is also on course. The bill is on its way to the Federal Ministry of Justice, from where it will be passed to the National Assembly. And of course, under that forest governance issues, we have forest fiscal policy and revenue systems. We have decentralization, management of protected areas, gender mainstreaming, forest land tenure, underfunding of the sector, and trade and all that. And the next challenge I would like to talk about is cross-sectoral policies. We know that these are realities. We have policies in other sectors that impact sustainable forest management. These policies, such as policy in energy, in mining, quarrying, agriculture, housing, transport, and all that. So it's an issue. Of course, capacity building. You know, the emerging scenario now is that the technology that has to do with sustainable management is dynamic, and there is need for continuous capacity building to be able to cope with this, with the dynamic nature of this technology. And of course, I would like to talk about the forest information system aspect. Even though the ministry is putting in place that over the years, the ministry through the Department of Forestry has been able to put together a structure that will, at the end of the day, constitute the forest information systems. We have the National Forest Monitoring System of the Nigerian Red Plus that is getting underway, and this is expected to flow into the FIS. But generally speaking, there will be the need for funding and more attention to actually develop a robust database system that will constitute the forest information system for the entire country. Then the efforts that have been made so far by the federal governments to restore and to conserve our forest. Where, as you know, one thing we have just realized is that lack of adequate awareness on the part of the public is one of the challenges. And we have identified this and it's being addressed. Presently, the ministry is into aggressive awareness, education, and publicity on the benefits of the forest and the danger inherent in deforestation. Right now, we are in Adamawa and Edo State. We are engaging schools, we are engaging local communities, and we are forming Young Foresters Club in those schools. Yes, we are in those two states right now. The program started on Sunday, and it runs throughout this week. And of course, the federal government has also demonstrated commitment to increasing the nation's forest cover to 25%. And this we have seen in all our various programs, including the afforestation and reforestation program nationwide. As part of the Mr. President pledge, like the Honorable Minister had mentioned in his remark, to plant 20 million trees. We see this one, the funding coming from the national budget, from the Green Bond, and from the public-private partnership. And efforts are ongoing. We have, I think, out of that 25 million trees, more than 80% have been achieved. And if you look at the rate at which we are going, we are bound to exceed that target in the near future, and then proceed to exceed the target. And of course, recently, the federal government has approved the creation of 10 additional national parks. These parks are located across the ecological zones of the country. And the bill is to strengthen and to actualize this creation is on course. And of course, also, I want us to know that presently, we have some areas designated as protected areas. And these are made up of 994 forest reserves. We have 7 national parks. That is outside the 10 newly created reserves and sanctuaries. Of course, we have 11 Ramsar sites, 27 important bird areas, then 2 World Heritage sites, and 5 biosphere. You know that these are protected areas, and these are areas that are restricted and conserved for what I would call model sustainable forest management for the country. Then, of course, we are into a process that will discourage over-reliance of wood fuel for energy needs. You know, the ministry, through the relevant departments and agencies, are already providing alternative sources of energy so that the local communities who rely on wood for energy needs will have alternative to this. And of course, we are also promoting climate smart agriculture, which include agroforestry and farmer-managed natural regeneration under the land degradation neutrality program of the UNDP. And of course, also, because we have a research institute in the ministry, and the institute has carried out and is still carrying out a lot of research works, especially on tree species improvement, climate change impact on forests and forest users, and also on adaptation of forests. Like I did mention, the ministry is implementing the Nigerian Red Plus program. This program, the last phase, the national phase of that program was under the technical assistance agreement with the FAO. And the good news is that Nigeria has been able to come up with the national forest reference emission level FRE. This FRE is a document that benchmarks Nigeria emissions. It's going to show whether Nigerian activities that we are witnessing today are actually making the desired change or not. And also the national strategy is in place. And of course, the safeguard information system. Then we have the NFMS. I would like to talk about the NFMS here. The NFMS is going to—
Please, just one more minute. One more minute, sir. Yeah.
The strategy and the SIS. And so when we have this in place, it's going to tell much story about Nigerian efforts, about the outcome of what we are doing today as per meeting the nationally determined contribution. Then I think I have so much to talk about. Then we have under legal policy and institutional framework, we have done a lot, we have achieved a lot. Like I did mention, we have just revised the national forest policy, and which is now in operation. Then we have the bill for the National Forestry Act that is on course. Then we also have Timber Legality Standard. We have Timber and Related Forest Products Certification Council bill. This bill are on course. And of course, we have also established the National Forest Trust Fund, which is to support or further support activities in the forestry sector. The fund is to provide alternative source of funding separate from government, because we have discovered that funding is one of the challenges of sustainable forest management in Nigeria. And of course, Nigeria is committed to all forestry-related conventions, agreements, and treaties. Through the ministry, we are committed to the 6 Forest Global Goals of the UNFF. We are also committed to 30 by 30 agenda. It may interest you to note here that Nigeria championed the post-2020 global framework. We championed that for the entire Africa, not only ECOWAS, because other African countries are key into what it did at the sub-regional level. And of course, Nigeria is also set to sign what we call cooperation framework agreement between Nigerian government and the government of Cameroon. The agreement is on transboundary ecosystem conservation and sustainable management of forestry and wildlife resources and others. And of course, we'll continue to collaborate with development partners and donor agencies. So much to talk. So I think I have not taken much of the time. I think I can stop here now. For the time being. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Razak Kolawole Adekola. Participants, you can understand I allowed Mr. Kolawole more time because I took his more or less as the keynote, because we had to hear what the federal government is doing as a sort of a basis for all our discussions. So I would like to request participants, if you have questions for him, please put questions in the chat, the Q&A chat, so that he can answer them. I already have 3 questions for him, which he will answer later. I wanted him to talk about the Great Green Wall. And as I said, if you look at the graphs, Nigeria is not doing very well. What is the strategy? He mentioned the 25 million trees, that 80% has been achieved. I want to see how we can confirm that. And then the forestry information system. This is very important. I have seen, I've been to Malaysia and Indonesia. You go to the minister responsible for environment there. In his office, he can tell you, he can show you exactly where they are cutting trees at that time. You see a red light showing, oh, they are encroaching on the forest here. And then they send the forest guards and so on. That kind of information is so crucial in protecting the forests of the country. So later I would request you to talk more about this information system, because it is so important. You know, the government may not be able to control anyone who is cutting down forests. So those are my 3 comments. Because of time, anyone who has something to ask on the lot that the government is doing, please put it in the chat. Let me move without wasting time. You realize, as I said, the first presentation was like keynote, but I will now give 5 minutes each to our other panelists. So I would like to start with and I'd like to thank you very much, Chief Tony Undiandeye from Cross River, for joining us. And we know, and as has been mentioned, Cross River has one of the few biosphere reserves, which is really very strategic and important. So please, Chief, tell us what you are doing at the state level. We had the federal, at state level, your efforts in making sure that we preserve, conserve, and actually regenerate Nigeria's forestry resources. Over to you, Chief. 5 minutes, thanks. Chief, you are muted. Yeah, unmute. Yeah, thanks.
Okay. The Honorable Minister for Environment, Federal Republic of Nigeria, the moderator, for want of time, would I like to stand on existing protocol. It is important, and I'm very grateful and very delighted that we are made to participate in this conference, particularly because Cross River State holds the key to most of what we talk about in Nigeria forestry. you will understand that Cross River State is one of the very few forests, holds the largest forest, about 50% of the forest in Nigeria. So it is important that we are brought into, and when they speak about the degradation, the devastation, deforestation in the forest, they will be talking about Cross River State, because even Cross River State provided the opportunity for the federal government to key into the UN rate. So it is important that we bring out the problems we are facing as a state. Well, let me begin from the ambitious commitment of the government of Cross River State under the governor of Cross River State, His Excellency Benayade's effort to plant 1 million trees. We began that process, and in the year that we started, we achieved about 25% of that ambition. Last year, which was supposed to be the following year, we had a problem with the COVID-19 and we could not do anything about that. But this year, he has charged the Forestry Commission to ensure that seedlings are provided to the extent that we can achieve more than half of what his commitment to reforestation was made to the entire nation. And that is why I'm even outside my office. I'm on tour. I'm talking to you from a sub office where I'm on tour of all the forest reserves in the state to make sure that all my sub offices key into that program. So, but largely, what are we doing to conserve the forest? The challenge is much, beginning from the fact that the personnel that we require to police the forest has depleted so very massively that we now find it difficult to arrest the forest. Now, many activities, because when the UN rate came, it was understood in 2018, in 2008, the government then placed a total ban on the forest, which means that there was nothing to be, no activity should take place in the forest. That encouraged illegal timber logging and reduce the policing of the Forestry Commission, as it were, because when that happened, the loggers took advantage of the fact that they said it's a total ban and began to do very uncontrollable activities in the forest. And that has caused more than 25% of degradation in our forest. Today, I'm not sure whether we have taken the last count on our carbon credit district. Otherwise, Cross River State has lost so much to these illegal activities. Government has been encouraged by my commission to review the position of total ban to the forest, because I do not know how we can ban completely the activities in the forest, because the communities no longer get the royalties that they used to get when sustainable management was put in place. So we have a challenge. I want to bring it to the national government that and the UN, that we have a challenge almost to a crisis situation in Cross River State. Last week, we have tried to discourage the illegal loggings by physically going to seize what they have logged. But is that going to solve the problem? It doesn't solve this problem, because already they would have cut down the wood and they would have sawn it to timbers and to whatever sizes they want before we go and cut. The only thing that we are encouraging government to reverse is to reverse the total ban, so that the Forestry Commission will have the total control of the forest in such a way that they will issue permits to only trees that can no longer do sequestration of carbon. Right now, we do not have any processes that lead to any person to legitimately enter the forest. So the entire process in Cross River State calls for urgent attention. And I bring this to you because I know that we are all in a position to speak to our government and to the Cross River State government particularly, to take note of these problems and to cooperate with the Forestry Commission to ensure that we bring these problems to a halt. But on the part of realizing the fact that the forest has been seriously degraded, government is doing everything. And we are, by this year, we would invite some of you to come to launch our tree planting effort. And you will see practically the effort that we will make in restoring the ecosystems that have been degraded by illegal activities in our forest areas. So this is to say, what are the methods we are using? We do not have a single coordinated method apart from using security to intervene, to ambush, to arrest, and then dispose of whatever, or keep perpetually what they have used to cause damage to the forest. That is how much we are doing. But we believe that with this kind of cooperation and with the increased awareness that this kind of conferences will create, we will bring this to the attention of the government, and together with the communities. Most of what we require to do must be the education and interaction with the communities, because the communities have to understand that what is happening would affect them ultimately. And so if we speak all the grammar and said that, look, this is where what to do, and the community is not, the community hosting the results is not involved in what we are doing, we will probably not achieve so much of what we desire to do. Even in the tree planting, whether the exotic trees or the indigenous species, the communities must be involved in what we are doing. So I think that greater portion of what we have to do is the education of those communities, particularly in Cross River State. What used to happen before we came to government was that each community that hosts our forest, if there is any activity that is legally allowed to take place in the community, that community has a portion of what is realized from the activity given back to the community. Right now, for a period of more than 10 years, the communities no longer get any compensation for activities in there. So they do not see even the need of preserving the forest. So it's an urgent crisis situation that we need to draw the attention of the government to, and I'm doing my best to do that. I'm sure that together with you, I raised this issue with the representative of FAO when they came in, and I said the challenge is that the forest is completely banned in Cross River State, and so the activities taking place are uncontrollable. So we require to work in concession to unban that issue. He knows that even the governor, when he spoke with him, he told him that the UN RED and all that, he doesn't know what they are benefiting and all that. He knew the discussion they had, and that the government is finding it very difficult to proceed with the UN RED and all those issues that are supposed to help mitigate our forest and to contribute to what the forest is supposed to contribute to climate change and all that. So I pray that with this meeting and other issues that will be raised, governments and ourselves will work together to ensure that the forest is protected. But this forest is going. Cross River Forest is going. I will insist that the forest is going. Not much is done to protect the forest. That's what I can say. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief Tony Undiande, for being very clear on what is happening. You know, sometimes the government may have very nice policies, but we need to hear from the people on the ground, really, whether these policies are making the impact that we desire. Okay, I will only have one question for you, but you'll respond to it later. I was in Cross River some time back, and I saw a newly constructed road to the border, which went directly through the forest, which I thought, and those are so many kilometers of forest degradation. These are some of the things that should be considered when state governments are handling such projects. One of my colleagues in UNESCO who are working on a biosphere reserve told me that they were very much disappointed by this action of the Cross River government. A long stretch of road through the middle of a forest, destroying probably millions of trees. It looked funny, really, when we are talking about forest conservation. But you'll maybe discuss this later when we come to discussions. Thank you very much. And we've had what Cross River is doing. Cross River, as you said, is so crucial when we are talking about forest conservation in Nigeria and also biodiversity conservation. I would like now to come to Professor Opeyemi Ajewole of University of Ibadan. Thank you so much for joining us. And of course, we cannot go far without research and understanding of trends and what is going on. And in your view, is Nigeria able? And from what you are studying, what should we do so that Nigeria really achieves those targets of conserving not only the forests, but also the biodiversity that this country really has in the forest resources? Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much. Let me stand on existing protocols to acknowledge and recognize all the distinguished personalities in this meeting, the honorable ministers, the FAO, the United Nations, and all.
It seems we've lost Prof. His connection is not very good. As we try to reconnect to Prof, maybe I'll go to Trace Obona.
Management.
Okay.
I hope you can hear me.
It was on and off, but please, now we hear you continue.
Okay. All right. So I was just saying that we need to refresh in our mind to look again what is sustainable forest management before we begin to identify roles. And as many of us are aware, sustainable forest management has to do with the stewardship and use of forests and forest lands in a way and at a rate that maintains their biological diversity, productivity, regeneration capacity, vitality, and potential to fulfill
Prof, we are losing you. Your connection, I think, has a problem. Can you hear us?
Of course, sustainable forest management anchors on the three key principles of sustainable development of economic and ecological and social values, the integration of the three. So if we look at this definition, we realize that the government has a role to play to put together all the other stakeholders. The government as the chief executive has a leadership role to play in giving us the policy trust and direction for sustainable forest management. The government also has a role to play in taking informed decisions based on good and suitable research outputs, and to provide the needed personnel to drive sustainable forest management. And lastly but not the least, to provide funding and other salient incentives for us to achieve sustainable forest management goals. So where then does the academia come in and the research come in? The research and academia has the mandate, or they're suspected to identify problems or challenges that may militate against government and other stakeholders' efforts in achieving the goal of sustainable forest management. And they also have to provide technically feasible, economically efficient, and socially acceptable solutions to such problems that have been identified. The research and academia also have to provide data or information, and forecast for predicting trends to help government to prepare and plan for the future generations, which is a very crucial component of SFM. The research and academia also have the mandate or the trust to look for technology that will enhance the achievement of SFM. and also provide personnel capacity building to drive the SFM. So if we look at all this, if we come back home to Nigeria, what has been the trend in terms of what do we have on ground, to drive SFM in Nigeria to support the activities of the government? The efforts of government at forestry research started in 1954 through the establishment of the Department of Forest Research, which later became Institute of Forest Research in 1977. And FRIN, that is, I'm talking about FRIN. FRIN started as a Department of Forestry Research in 1954 and changed status in 1977 to become an institute. And FRIN today has 7 specialized research departments and 10 outstations spread across different ecological zones in Nigeria to take into consideration peculiar research needs in each of those zones. FRIN also has 3 service units and 4 HND and OND awarding colleges, where medium level forest personnel have been trained. Then coming to the university in 1963, the Department of Forestry, University of Ibadan, was established by the collaboration or the assistance of FAO, and the mandate of the department transformations.
Okay.
Okay, are you hearing me now?
Yeah, we are hearing you now. Just 1 minute. Yep.
Okay. So today we have, in Nigeria, we have about 26 universities offering forestry programs and 17 polytechnics, and coupled with the activities of FRIN. So we can say that the research and academia has grown fairly well in feeding, in producing personnel and producing research outputs to meet the needs. However, in order to improve, to enrich our forestry research and promote training, the forestry research we need more institutes that will, instead of concentrating all the different areas of forestry in one institute, it is important to spread out so that each institute will focus on a special area. For example, we may have Institute of Dryland Forestry in the arid area of the country. We may have Institute of Aquatic Forestry that will take care of our wetlands, watersheds, riparian forests, and gallery forests, and so forth and so on. So that has to be done so that we can build more on the gains we have had so far. Secondly, and lastly, the Ministry of Environment should liaise with other stakeholders globally to improve on the funding of our training institutions and funding of sustainable forest management in terms of grants, scholarships, equipment, and so forth and so forth. I would say that our training institutes, universities, and sectors have gone a long way. We have reviewed the universities. Many of the universities have reviewed their programs and curricula. And for example, in our own University of Ibadan now, the one department that started some years ago is now 4 departments. And we have used some of our curriculum in the department of, in the core forestry programs. Now we have programs in geographic information science. We have forest information systems as a unit for master's study. We have units that specialize in urban and environmental departments too. In Nigerian universities, our research and academia have been able to contribute, but we still have much to go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Opeyemi Ajeole. Very important work that the research community is doing. And I think we'll get some questions and remarks. In the interest of time, I just have one comment for you. The world is going into smart and precision agriculture. And I think we need the research and academic institutions to sort of lead this effort in Nigeria, so to enable us, when we talk of planting 25 million trees, if you are planting them in these days when water is not adequate, how can we use smart technologies to achieve this? I think these are some of the areas that we need you in the academia to support. Thank you very much. In the interest of time, I would like to go to a very important sector, and that is civil society. I think it was the director of forestry who said that one of the issues that still is a challenge is people even knowing the importance of conserving the forests. And usually civil society is critical in addition to advocacy and also with the government, but also enabling us to make sure that people understand what is at stake. I would like to now call in Trace Obona. She is with the Women Environmental Program, WEP. I would like her to talk about the efforts they are making in civil society to ensure that we conserve and even regenerate the forestry resources of Nigeria. Thank you very much. Over to you, Trace.
Thank you very much. I would like to stand on existing protocol. My name is Tracy, as I was introduced, and I've listened to the robust discourse here about conserving our forest in line with the World Forest Day. And for us, what we majorly see is that the depletion of forest is heavily dependent on livelihoods. If you've listened to the presentations, you'll see the illegal deforestation for energy purposes, for business purposes, and all kinds of purposes. And when you talk about awareness creation for the community people and for other users of forest who benefit from these resources legally or illegally, the connection there is that there is a lack of livelihood that would take away or would give an alternative to the people who are heavily dependent on forest. So what we do is we try to create the awareness, and we also try to train people on the use of fuel-efficient cook stoves. We have trained them on how to make fuel-efficient cook stoves and also to use them and also to step down that training. But the connection here is that when you drive around places in Nigeria, you will see a lot of illegal deforestation and tree cutting going down. What we are proposing is that these communities, aside from creating awareness for them, they also need to host nurseries in those communities. We know that the federal government has given states the authority to own forest reserves. And the national alone cannot do this without carrying on the states and the local government and the structure of the civil society and the private sector going down the whole stretch, all the way down to the grassroots. What would the government do to alleviate poverty? We know that Nigeria has overtaken India on the poverty index. This is a very big and critical issue. No matter how much you create awareness for people, once they are hungry, they will go back to the same resource. And because they see forest as an inexhaustible resource, they don't know how to regenerate or replant it once they keep taking out of it and making the money or living off of it. So what we are advocating is that the government itself should work hand in hand with the civil society organization, not just to build awareness, but to find alternatives, ways that we can empower communities to be self-dependent without having to, or to even use the forest sustainably. But if you have like plant nurseries at community levels or even at local government levels, and the awareness is created, people would willingly replenish those forests even as they take out of it. You know, so that is the key message I would like to deliver, because we have had the robust discussion from the Federal Ministry of Environment about all the policy trust that they have. But policies themselves don't transform into actions without having to tie in the critical stakeholders that are involved in this of forest depletion. So let's get the message out there. We are ready to work with whichever organization to help to implement this, because we know also that women are also very key critical stakeholders. And thank God they said that the policy also has a gender aspect of it. And it's not just representing gender, but it's actually to ensure that the roles that both men, women play in using the forest is clearly defined, and the stakeholders know exactly the roles that they need to play when it comes to implementing those policies and when it comes to stepping it down at the grassroots level. By and large, we need to improve on the livelihood of the communities, especially who are around the forest, for this to be effective in any way.
Thank you very much. That is very critical because, like you said, we can talk about forest regeneration. If we don't give people options and the population is increasing and their livelihoods are threatened, yeah, we really have an uphill task. Thank you so very much for this presentation. Now, I'm so happy that we still have the Honorable Minister around and the FAO representative. I'll give them the last word, but I want to go through the comments and questions that have come in so that our panelists can see what to comment on these questions, and then 5 minutes each. And then, of course, we will give the last word to the Honorable Minister and the FAO rep. There is a comment here, someone saying that, and I think the person read my mind. I was saying 80% of the 25 million trees. Sir, can you show us data on how these trees have been planted so that we can celebrate this success of Nigeria? That is, I think, for the director. Thank you, Mr. Dekola, for the wonderful presentation. Indeed, this one is actually saying that the federal ministry is doing well, that this is from Gombe State. Gombe State, they are feeding what the ministry is doing in planting the 25 million trees. And this is from an NGO in Gombe State. And the person hopes that the federal ministry will do more on the issue of alternative sources of energy, which I think Tracy was talking about, in an effort to yield more results. So this is from Bima Samaria Umar from the Joel Environmental Initiative in Gombe. Another comment or question is, we may like to know why the Great Green Wall performance is not showing. This is again from Gombe. As in Gombe State, it's not performing. Does it have to do with top-down approach? Please, probably there's a need to change. As the environment NGOs in the Northeast, we can't see improvements, please. This one is from Dr. Edwin Isoede. Along the Atlantic coast in River State is a large expanse of forest, which houses several elephants and other endangered wildlife. What is being done to protect this forest? This is River State. What program is designed for involved local communities in Nigeria in forest conservation? This, I think Chief Tony talked about it, involving the local communities. Yeah, probably Trace also talked about it. The other comment is the Committee on Planting the 25 million trees was created on 19th December 2019. COVID-19 started in March 2020. Government and its operation was suspended because of the pandemic. I remember the Ministry of Environment donated 1 million trees on World Environment Day. Where and when did the ministry plant the 20 million trees, which is 80% of the trees that Mr. Dekola mentioned? And then another comment is about civil society organizations working on environment, especially on forest conservation and tree planting at the subnational levels, should be supported with funds to support subnational governments. I think that is from a civil society perspective how they will be supported. The last comment I'll take here is, what is the relationship between the Ministry of Environment and federal in making sure that all stakeholders take responsibility and completely complementing the efforts of government? The question is about the relations between the state Ministry of Environment and the federal Ministry of Environment, in order to make sure that all these issues we are talking about are addressed. So I'll stop there. I'll give each panelist 5 minutes to respond as you see the issues that have been raised. And then, of course, I'll give the final words to the Honorable Minister and the FAO rep. Do we still have the Director of Forestry with us?
Yes, thank you.
Yes, please. Yeah, over to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I will like to address the question that has to do with 80% achievement of that 25 million target. I'm happy the anonymous person mentioned that December last year, 1 million tree seedlings were donated to his organization. You can imagine if just one organization can be given 1 million, we have hundreds of such organizations coming for us. As a matter of fact, right now, we have been inundated with requests. That is one good thing about what is happening today. We have a lot of stakeholders showing interest to identify with these 25 million trees we are talking about. Just this year alone, the NFTF made grants available, yes, to support meeting these targets. And that grant was successfully applied to implement afforestation and other related activities to support increase in forest cover. As a matter of fact, the department of the ministry were involved, the agencies were involved. Then we have stakeholders, those in the wood export sectors, they were involved. Then we have NGOs that were involved. NGOs were given ceilings in millions. Also, FCT administration through the Parks and Recreation Department, yes, they receive ceilings from us to be part of what we are doing. Then we have the communities. The good thing is that communities are even showing interest. It's only in FCT here, we donated seedlings to communities, and we even went ahead and supported them in planting those trees. So if you put this together, apart from that, like I did mention, we have trees, we have plantations in states, like we have in Akwa Ibom, we have in Edo, we have in FCT, then we have in Bauchi, in Adamawa, and most part of the states. And now states like Borno, Yobe have come forward to request for seedlings, but we were constrained as at that time because of the seasonality of the rain. We could not give the seedlings to them because the logistics involved in transporting the seedling from here to such a distance will be such that it will not allow those seedlings to thrive. So that's the scenario. Sometimes it may sound incredible, but what we are witnessing today is such that a lot of people are coming to identify with us, and we have figures to show. It's not things that we can't figure. We are giving this thing out. We are not just giving out the seedlings. We are directly involved in the planting of this seedlings. So it is not easy. We even have an MIE that is taking care of all this. So that is for that. Then for Bima, saying that you did not feel you have not felt the impact of Great Green Wall in Gombe State. Honestly, I'm very surprised to hear this because the Great Green Wall has been so effective, so impactful in the 11 frontline states that agency has been intervening. As a matter of fact, they are not just planting trees. Remember, they have programs that affect livelihoods. So what they are saying is, we want to empower the communities so that they don't have to rely on forest alone, because this is one of the issues. But then I will transmit your question to the agency. Then the next question, do I still have anyone that has to do with me? I think that is all.
Yeah, there's one that maybe you want to respond. Chief Tony talked about illegal logging, and he was recommending that the total ban on logging should be reinstated. Do you want to comment on this?
Yes and no, because I remember in Cross River State, I happened to be in cross-river states at a time when the state governments placed total ban on logging. Yes, it sounds good, but you need to consider also the side effect of such policy, because you know us in Nigeria, especially when you say total ban, that is when you see some people trying to indulge in that act. It happened. We saw it practically happening in Cross River State. We began to see what we call leakages. If the state government is saying, okay, we are banning logging totally. Yes, we don't want to see lumber or timber moving within the state, but we can use the neighboring state. So we began to see illegal activities across the state border into the neighboring states. So this has to be reviewed, and it is a good idea, but we just have to look at the issue of leakages. You cannot ban logging totally, because you cannot say you will not. Although it may sound funny, it may not be achievable to place 100% ban on logging, because it just have to happen. For example, we still need this wood also for some activities. We still need the wood to some extent to run the economy. But what we need to do is to do it sustainably. That's why the issue of sustainable forest management is. It's not saying there should be total ban, but it must be managed sustainably so that the use and even the management are done sustainably. That is just it. So that is my viewpoint concerning that. Thank you.
Maybe you also will talk about the issue of the question about the relationship between the state and government, how your department works with the department at the state level to ensure that actually these very nice policies that we have at federal level filter through. So there was that question. If you want to comment on it, please.
Yes, yeah, but you know, in Nigeria, forest administration is being administered by various stakeholders, the federal government, we have the state government, we have the FCT there, we have the local government, we have the communities, we even have the civil service organization. So all these are stakeholders and are all involved in the administration of forestry in Nigeria. Of course, states play key role because the reserves are under their control. At the federal, we only formulate policy. We make sure that those policies are implemented. Of course, we also, among others, support technically. And who are we supporting? Who are we ensuring that the policies we have formulated, yes, are affecting positively? It is the states. The states are closer to the NGOs. They are closer to the communities. They are closer to the local government. So we are well knit. We work hand in hand. The relationship between us is very cordial. And of course, all that we are doing, we cannot do in isolation without the states. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Very good clarifications. And indeed, what you are saying, somebody here is confirming, says that they have planted the 3,000 trees which were given to them. And yeah, so and they even have a confirmation of that. Thank you very much, Mr. Razak Kolawale Dekola, the Director of Forestry Department, Ministry of Environment. Now, some 5 minutes for Chief Tony. You've had some of the questions relating to the state and how the states are managing the forestry resources in their areas, and also remember my question about how to manage infrastructure and forestry resources, and that concern that I had about it's good to have infrastructure, but how now you manage with forest conservation. Over to you, Chief. Chief, you are muted. We can't hear you, Chief Tony Undiandeye. We can't hear you. You are muted. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, please.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, please. Okay. We can hear you now.
Yes. Okay. I'm so grateful for this conference, and I think it could not be anything better. Conservation, like I had said earlier on, and many people have collaborated, especially the Director of Forestry, Mr. Kolawale. I don't know what what you meant by infrastructure and conservation. I cannot link the two now. You talked about the route that was considered by the state government, the 275-kilometer route, which people had raised objections to because it was passing through the forest. Yes, initially the plan was that it was going to pass through the part of the forest, and there were issues that were raised. So government had to reroute the road off from the forest reserve, and the total kilometer now, because it has to reroute the road to prevent it from passing through the heart of the forest, it became 300 and something kilometers. And so government was very sensitive to the outcry. The initial design passed through the major forests of Ikure. I personally visited that Ikure community and saw that it was truly, that road was truly going to pass through that major forest. And so the government became sensitive. The governor himself is an environmentalist. So we had to reroute the road off from that forest. And now the road has not even gotten to any substantive forest reserve yet. Where we are still doing has not affected the forest. And I hope from what we have seen and what was submitted to the Federal Ministry of Environment for their approval of environmental impact assessment, the road has come up from the heart of the forest. So there should be no worry as to whether the government is being insensitive or unmindful of the consequences of deforesting a large portion of a virgin forest that has not been dealt with for a long time. Government is very sensitive. That's why government is doing so much to ensure that it supports us in the practical steps that we are taking while the ban lasts. We are taking practical steps and we're being supported by government and security agencies to deal with those illegal loggers. But on a long term, we are advocating that we should return to sustainable management. And we have made this point again and again with my governor and with other stakeholders in the forestry subsector. And we are hopeful that you would add your voice, not only in this forum. We would like you to add your voice strongly on the revision of the policy of total ban, because it's not possible to ban the forest, to log the forest and put the key away, because many activities, including some of the things that we feed, we bring them from the forest. So when you log the forest completely, the livelihood of the people is cut short by because we have vegetables, medicinal plants that you go to the forest to get. So when you log the forest, it's practically impossible to log the forest. We cannot limit even a forest ban to only timber logging and all that. There are many activities that take place in the forest, including mining. So there are many which are dangerous to the ecosystem. So we are encouraging the government to look in the direction of sustainable management so that we can regulate, and police with an initiative that, look, if we are going to do logging in this direction of the forest, then we have a duty to begin to plan how we can regenerate that very portion that we have degraded or we have deforested. So this is the area we are arguing with the government, and I think they are seeing reasons. Soon, and with your voice, lending your voice to it, we're very sure that very, very soon you will see a new Crossriver State. We're determined under my chairmanship to see a reduction in the illegal activities in our forest, because we know the consequences in terms of even I can tell you, I relate this to even the 2 days rainfall that happened in Crossriver State here. There was a wild wind that many houses were destroyed. And I came on the radio and told them that, look, these are consequences of degrading your forest, because the trees that you used to plant around and you cut them down, they are no longer there to act as windbreakers. So that's what is affecting you. So we are trying those kind of things. And like Ms. Tracy Aguna said, the livelihood of the people around the forestry reserves must be considered very seriously.
We know we have this fuel project in Cross River State. We are looking after it. We are planting, but of what impact, immediate impact, is it making to the community? The community may not understand it clearly, that it is to let them take off the pressure that they have in the forest. So we need to continuously, and we are doing this. But like I said, Cross River State is disadvantaged in a lot of ways. One, when they log the forest with the understanding that the UN Red was going to mitigate in some of the social issues that are bedeviling the state. The state is at the bottom. What was the bottom of the federal allocation? And forest is the area where the resources of financing the state should come from. So locking the forest means you're not getting anything from there for government. And so we are encouraging even the federal government to see how they can use other means to compensate the Cross River State, since it provided the platform for the launching of the UN Red. So these are the arguments we are making, and I hope that we will meet with the federal government through the Honorable Minister of Environment, who can look at our issues passionately and see how they can mitigate our difficulties and the challenges, so that we can do better. Because we all know that Cross River State provides more than 50% of the rainforest reserve in the entire country. So the entire country should pay attention to what Cross River State is doing. This is what we are appealing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chief. And you are raising very important points, and I hope the Honorable Minister and the FAO rep, when they make their closing remarks, will address some of the issues that you have raised. And for the FAO representative, there's some question, one more question here. Maybe when you come to, you'll talk about it. Someone is asking, what program does the FAO in Nigeria have to engage NGOs in creating awareness on deforestation in the country? But let me first go back to Prof. Ajeole for any final comments on this, and also talking about the research in sort of the modern agricultural methods in the whole value chain on forestry resources. Over to you, Prof.
Thank you very much, sir. Yes, like I said before, that our activities, the research activities are hugely constrained by the level of development. Are you hearing me in the system?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Oh, okay. We have great potential of human resources, people who are well trained, but the outlets to express their skill and knowledge can be very constraining. And that's what part of my recommendations, that our research base should be expanded, and there should be adequate attention, go far beyond the Ministry of Education, and there should be a kind of a symbiotic relationship to improve on our research activities in Nigeria. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very, very much, Prof. Now, a final word from Madam Tracy Obona. The issues around NGOs and how they facilitate this awareness. That question was addressed to the FAO rep, but you can also say something about it, please.
Thank you very much. I also wanted to say something about two issues. The first one is regulation of forest and logging. I think we cannot completely stop people from using the forest, but we can regulate the usage by giving people permits to cut down trees that are found to no longer sink carbon. That would be a very good way forward. The second one I wanted to talk about is that there's a serious gap in monitoring and policing the forest. And because there's a lot of issues of unemployment, I think the federal government can look into employing youths around those communities as forest guard. That will also provide them an alternative income and reduce the rate of deforestation. As we heard, about 95% of Nigeria's forest has gone. So we need to find strategies to start mitigating that right away. And then on creating awareness, ministries have a method where people or NGOs register with them to partner in different activities. As an NGO, we try to raise funds specifically for issues in our target areas, which is environment, climate change, etc. And we specifically plan activities that target the most at-risk communities or communities that are most vulnerable to deforestation. And then we go there and we go there, we meet the community leaders and the stakeholders, and then we discuss with them about the benefits of forest and the challenges of climate change and all that. So the NGOs really need to learn how to link up themselves with relevant organizations and ministries and departments and agencies for them to tie in their work to forest and forest management.
Thank you very much, Trace Obona from the Women Environmental Program NGO for this very illuminating information that you've given us. So I would like to thank all our panelists. First of all, thank you so much, Director of Forestry, for really a very illuminating presentation about what the government is doing and is achieving. It's a very wide area that you're working on, and the results. In fact, from some of the participants, you had them saying, "Oh, we are seeing this. We are feeling the impact already." So actually, your work is being felt. You can see from what people are saying. So thank you very much, sir, for coming and for really the robust presentation of. You started many years ago, the efforts of the government of Nigeria. And I think if we go in this direction, certainly Nigeria will go a long way to achieve our goals. This is very, very, very good. So good to have you, Chief Tony Ondiande from Cross River State. We are looking forward to coming to the launch of the 1 million trees planting, but I leave that to our FAO rep. He's the one who speaks for the UN on these issues. Thank you very much for participating. Thank you very much, Prof. Opeyemi Ajewole, also the issues you raised about research. I hope the Honorable Minister and the FAO rep will say something about this area because I think it is so pertinent. And thank you very much, Tracy, for what you've said, especially the issue, that element of the livelihoods aspect. And as you rightly said, we can say, oh, don't cut down trees, but people need to live and survive. So we need to see what options we have so that we really have success in our environmental conservation and especially the regeneration of the forests in the country. So I would like to end with the closing words. First of all, I'm so glad that the Honorable Minister is still with us, but I would like to give 5 minutes to the FAO rep, Mr. Fred Kafero, for his closing remarks, bearing in mind some of the discussions and the issues that have come up. And as you know, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, for us in the United Nations, they are the ones who really focus on this area and are the ones who can talk substantively on it. Over to you, Mr. Fred Kafero.
Thank you. Thank you so much, my brother Ronald. Also, let me add my voice in thanking you for steering this wonderful debate. I think that we have had quite a very good time. Our distinguished panelists have shared openly and frankly on the issues that they see impeding the forest restoration. But they have not only said that, they have also proposed some solutions, how they see some of these challenges can be overcome. This is very good, and in my view, I think this is the essence of these kinds of discussions, that we do not only apportion blame, but that we also be part and parcel of contributing to the solutions. I want to assure you that much of the issues that have come out and mentioned here are within our areas of mandate in supporting the efforts of government. from a technical perspective, because FAO is a technical agency. Now, even when our main partner is the government, largely because of our intergovernmental character, FAO cooperates with all actors and stakeholders. We work with research and academia, and I think you heard what Professor Opeyemi was saying while he was outlining the role of academia in these issues. We've worked with so many research and universities in many countries, including here. And I think the point you raised earlier on, moderator, with regard to how we can move into more smart and innovative digital solutions in the quest for our work in forestry. Largely, this goes through research and academia, but also with the respective government institutions. We work with civil society organizations quite a lot, actually. And we know the importance of civil society organizations, their closeness to the people who really are impacted by our decisions and actions, who are the local communities, particularly those that depend on forests. So surely, yes, you are our key partners as NGOs, and I want to appreciate here Madame Tracy for sharing with us some of the actions that they're doing. Without you, it's very difficult to actually reach, but also to sustain actions with the grassroots communities. We also work with the private sector collaboratively. We have very specific guidelines through which we work with the private sector, but those two are our stakeholders. So allow me to highlight just a few areas that surely I want to commend the efforts of the federal government of Nigeria for the great initiatives that they are involved in. I see that in the area of forest governance, a lot has been achieved in regard to having an updated policy framework. The legal framework is also in place and is being finalized. We've heard also about how the institutions work with each other and they're in place. I think that is one part of the story. The other one is therefore how these policies are implemented on the ground. The rules, the regulations, the guidelines in place, and whether they are enforceable or not. Because unless they're enforceable, they cannot be effective. So this brings up all these issues that we've been talking about, whether they're really supportive. I think we heard from my brother, the Chief Tony, from Cross River, pleading and saying, look, the issue of the total ban in our case is not working at all, because the role of the local forest users has not been taken into consideration. The communities need alternative livelihoods for them to be able to actually withstand the impacts of this total ban on logging. So how do we listen to these voices? How do we take into consideration the voices of the local people while we are making these rules and regulations? For us, that's all about governance and how that governance translates into real practice and ensuring that there's sustainability of the decisions that we make. If there are no alternatives, certainly you expect there will be no sustainability. But the role of local communities here comes in very, very handy. FAO has been in many countries supporting community-based forestry. And in this case, looking at how community structures can be organized in such a way that they play a critical role in managing forest resources in a sustainable way, because they're closer to those resources. That's where their livelihoods depend. And without us being able to bring them on board and give them the responsibilities and effective roles, it will become very difficult to ensure sustainability and reducing, therefore, forest degradation. So these are issues that we can still continue to engage on, and I like very much the enthusiasm and energy of Dr. Rasak, the director, of forestry. We will talk more on these issues because I think that we can provide a range of technical assistance from much of the things that have been talked about, but we'll have time to talk about that. I want also to commend the effort of growing, we call it growing trees, because for us, it's actually not about planting. It's really growing, because planting is just one aspect, but really nurturing and ensuring that those trees reach the maturity that we desire is a long process. And that's why, again, I come back to the people and how they are involved. So the target of 25 million trees can only succeed if indeed local people and their structures are part and parcel of the initiative. In that way, we can be able to make a lot of progress. I also want to commend what I heard, actually, which is very important, when the director was talking about the cross-sectoral nature of forests. One institution alone cannot be able to deal with the issues that we're talking about. These are issues that cut across many sectors, and therefore the need to bring all these sectors together, to work together, to plan together is key. But also the links that we have had today with regard to the federal and the state level governance of forests, I think is crucial for us to think about. Then I also learned that there is a cooperation framework in place or being planned with the Cameroon. I think this is really commendable. Many of these resources, as we know, are transboundary. And even when you do your part, if your neighbor doesn't do their part, you still don't achieve the global good that you aimed to achieve. So it's very, very important that we encourage these kinds of transboundary cooperation frameworks, but go ahead and also work on them. In fact, there are so many opportunities at global level, to support these kinds of transboundary resources. And the Ministry of Environment in this country is key, because they hold the key to accessing global funds that are with respect to environment management or with respect to addressing the impacts of climate change. And Honorable Minister, of course, we have met, but we'll continue meeting and talking more about these issues, because for us as FAO, being one of the accredited agencies for these kinds of funds, we can be able to support your efforts in beefing up the financial resources that are needed really to implement this work. But I really want to end by thanking everybody for the great webinar we have had. It's a good start. We'll continue doing this time and again, so that we can be able to put the issues of restoration on the agenda and in the public domain. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Fred Kafero, the representative of the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations in Nigeria. The final word, of course, will go to the Honorable Minister. I hope Honorable Minister is still with us. No? Okay, it seems Honorable Minister is not with us. He's the one that I wanted to give the final word. But anyway, we have reached the end of the webinar. We have had very fruitful discussions. I would like to request all the panelists, please, to switch on your cameras, because my colleagues working on, the new normal want to take some photos, because now in this new normal, there's a way we do it. Yeah, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, all the participants. Or my colleagues, I hope you can now take the photos. Thank you very much, all the participants. And we have been also on social media networks. We've been live streaming on YouTube and other social media. Thank you for those who have connected through Zoom. Thank you so much for all the panelists. Special thanks to the Honorable Minister. He took time off to be with us. He had most of the discussions. I think he was around for 3/4 of the whole discussion. So I think the key issues came up. Thank you so much from Ministry, the Ministry of Forestry. Thank you very much from the university, from Ibadan, the Prof, civil society, and from the, we are looking forward to coming to Cross River for that launch of the 1 million trees. And I hope if our FAO rep has time, we'll go together to see that launch, because that's the big thing that will happen. So thank you very much, everybody. This is brings us to the end of this event, and good afternoon and have a very nice day. Thank you very much. Over and out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. It's finished.
Thank you.
Wait, which one is this? Digital management.